The little bullpup sighed as it trudged along. He felt quite discouraged, and he was cold and tired, but he never once thought of turning back. When Nipper started something, he liked to finish it. He struggled along through the snow and ice. Soon he came to the thick clump of bushes where Mrs. Robin had built her nest last summer. There, half hidden by tangled vines, was the nest. But just as the little bird had said, there wasn't a sign of Mrs. Robin or any of her family. As he drew nearer, he was surprised to hear a queer rasping noise coming from the nest. "That's funny," he said to himself, cocking his head on one side to listen. "I never heard a bird make a noise like that. It sounds like my mother when she's sleeping." He crept a little nearer and stopped to listen again. Now he could hear it quite plainly, and it did sound for all the world like someone snoring. "Hello there," he shouted. "Who are you? And what are you doing in Mrs. Robin's nest?" "It's my nest," a sleepy voice answered, "and I have been sleeping in it for days and days. Now you have waked me." "If you have been sleeping for days and days," said Nipper, "I should think that it was about time you woke up." "It is not time yet," answered the voice. "It is too cold and there's snow on the ground." "Well, snow or no snow," said the little bullpup, "I think that sleeping is a very poor way to spend the time." "It is the best way for me," said the voice. "I am nice and warm in here, and there is nothing for me to eat outside. There is no use in my running about. Lots of little animals like me go to sleep when the cold weather comes." "That's too bad," said Nipper, shaking his head sadly. "That Jack Frost fellow certainly makes a lot of trouble for everyone. But you can wake up now, for there isn't going to be any more snow." "What's that you say?" asked the voice. And a moment later, a small red head appeared over the edge of the nest. Nipper had never seen such an animal before. It looked something like a squirrel, only its coat was red, and there were pretty black markings around its eyes. Its ears were large and broad, and the little paws that clutched the edge of the nest were white. "Are you a squirrel or a mouse?" asked the little bullpup, sticking his short blunt nose in the air and sniffing. "Neither," answered the little creature. He rested his head on the edge of the nest and closed his eyes. "They are both related to me, but I am a dormouse." "A dormouse?" exclaimed Nipper. "I never heard of a mouse living in a nest in a tree. If you're a dormouse, why aren't you behind the door?" "You ask too many questions," said the dormouse, yawning and rubbing his eyes. "No, what was it you said about the snow?" "I said there would be no more snow," answered Nipper, busily pulling bits of ice and snow from between his toes. "You see, I am on my way to find Jack Frost and make him take the snow away." "You're going to find Jack Frost?" exclaimed the dormouse, scrambling up to the top of the nest and opening his eyes quite wide. "And where are you going to look for him?" "I don't quite know," answered the little bullpup. "I was thinking that he would probably be in some very cold place. Do you know of a very cold place around here?" "The coldest place that I know," answered the dormouse, closing his eyes again and beginning to yawn, "it's up at the north end of the pond where the children skate." "Oh, thank you," said the little bullpup politely. "That's just what I wanted to know. I'll go there at once." "You can go if you like," said the dormouse, yawning 3 times in succession, "but I'm quite sure that you will never find him." "Perhaps not," said Nipper, "but I'm going to try, and when I try very hard, I generally succeed." I wouldn't try at all, said the Dormouse, sitting up on his hind legs with his long feathery tail spread out on the branch behind him. It might be dangerous. That's just what Mr. Bushytail said, answered the little bullpup, but he wouldn't tell me why. Don't ask me to tell you either, said the Dormouse, looking around anxiously. I don't want to get into trouble with Jack Frost. Who knows, but he may be listening to us this very minute. Nonsense, answered Nipper, but he glanced about uneasily. There isn't a soul near us. Woof, woof, said a deep voice right behind him. Nipper jumped with surprise and saw a large red and white dog standing a few feet away. A bird dog, he said under his breath. He's a setter, and a big one too. I'll have to look very tough and scare him away. It would never do for him to find the Dormouse. He looked back at the bush and was relieved to find that the Dormouse had run into his nest to hide. Hunching up his shoulders and throwing out his elbows so that he looked quite bow-legged, Nipper walked forward stiffly to meet the big dog. What were you doing under that bush? Asked the big setter gruffly. That's my affair, answered Nipper, scowling at the setter and sticking out his lower jaw so far that two of his little white teeth showed quite plainly. You don't need to look so sore, said the setter, glaring back at the little bullpup. You are not looking for a scrap, are you? Oh, no, answered the little bullpup. We bulldogs never look for a scrap, but if we have to fight, we can manage quite nicely. The setter snorted with disgust and began to sniff the air. I'm looking for something to hunt, he said. Have you seen any birds about? You are very stupid, said the little bullpup. Don't you know that the birds have to go south when the cold weather comes? I'm not talking about the little birds, said the setter gruffly. They don't interest me at all. I'm looking for pheasants and quail. Nipper, looking very uneasy, glanced quickly over his shoulder. In spite of his fright, the Dormouse had gone to sleep again, and the little bullpup could hear him snoring quite plainly. I must wake him up, he said to himself. If the setter hears him, goodness knows what will happen. I asked you, said the setter, giving him a nudge with his nose, if you had seen any pheasants and quail about. Yes, yes, cried Nipper, pheasants and quail. Wiggling about excitedly, he shouted, Pheasants and quail! Pheasants and quail! At the top of his voice, hoping to wake the Dormouse. What's the idea of shouting like that? Asked the setter, looking suspiciously at the little bullpup. Pheasants and quail! Shrieked Nipper, jumping up and down in front of the setter and laughing loudly. But it was no use, for the setter had already heard the Dormouse. Stop the shouting, he cried, and running at the little bullpup, he rolled him roughly in the snow. What is that noise over in the bushes? He demanded. Noise? Asked Nipper, struggling to his feet and shaking the snow off his coat. Do you hear a noise? Of course I do, answered the setter. Tell me what it is at once. Well, I wouldn't like to say for certain, answered the little bullpup, but it sounds very like my mother when she has been running too fast. Your mother? Exclaimed the setter, looking around anxiously. Is your mother here? I never said she wasn't, didn't I? Asked the little bullpup, looking up and showing all his teeth in a friendly smile. Would you like to see my mother? No, I wouldn't, answered the setter. I saw her once, and I must say that I didn't like her looks. Oh, she isn't half as bad as she looks, said Nipper, and she very seldom fights. In fact, I have only seen her fight once, but that was terrible. Whom did she fight? Asked the setter, looking anxiously towards the bushes. Was it a little dog? No, answered the little bullpup. It was a very big dog, much bigger than you. He was sick for a long time afterwards. Did the big dog start the fight? Asked the setter, licking his lips nervously. Oh no, said the little bullpup. My mother started it. You see, he said, smiling sweetly, the big dog was teasing me. Just then the dormouse gave a terrific snort, and the setter dashed off into the woods as fast as he could go. The little bullpup tossed his head proudly, and, wagging his tail happily, he trotted over to the nest. Wake up! Wake up! He shouted to the dormouse. The setter has gone, and I feel sure that he won't come back. I'm afraid I have been asleep, said the dormouse, sticking his head out of the nest. I'm very grateful to you, for I'm sure that you have saved my life. Oh, he went away very quietly, said Nipper, chuckling softly. In fact, he seemed quite anxious to go. If you hadn't made such a noise snoring, I wouldn't have had any trouble at all. You are a good little dog, said the dormouse. Although, if you'll pardon me for saying so, you have a very funny face. I know it is funny, said the little bullpup, grinning delightedly. But you should see my mother. I think that it would be well if you went home to your mother now, said the dormouse kindly. I would hate to see you get into serious trouble. Oh no, answered the little bullpup, shaking his head and looking very stubborn. I am not going home until I find Jack Frost. Oh dear, dear, cried the dormouse. This is terrible. You are such a brave little dog. I hate to see you go into danger. I won't be in any danger, answered Nipper, starting to walk away. Wait, wait, cried the dormouse. Nipper turned back and saw that the dormouse had left the nest and was hanging head down, his hind feet clutching the branch tightly. Come back, cried the dormouse. You have been so good to me, I can't let you go without telling you. Telling me what? Asked the little bullpup, watching anxiously, for he was quite sure the dormouse would fall on his head any minute. About Jack Frost, cried the dormouse, beckoning to Nipper. Come closer, for I will have to whisper. The little bullpup, too astonished to speak, quickly ran under the bush. This is what I have heard, whispered the dormouse, putting his nose close to Nipper's ear. They say, he whispered, that if Jack Frost were so much as to breathe on you, he would turn you into a lump of ice. Oh my, exclaimed Nipper, beginning to shiver and shake. I wouldn't like to be a lump of ice, but I am so cold now, I don't believe that it would make much difference. Do you mean that you are still determined to go? Said the dormouse, scrambling back on the branch and into his nest. Yes, I am, answered the little bullpup. He stood up very stiff and straight and tried not to shiver. Goodbye, he called as he started off again. I'll come back safe and sound. Just wait and see. The dormouse shook his head sadly. Goodbye, he said. I'll always remember what a brave little dog you were. The little bullpup trotted along as fast as he could, keeping close to the edge of the pond. But it was hard going, for the path was rough, and his feet were already bruised and sore from the sharp snow crusts. He was so exhausted when he reached the end of the pond that he sat down to rest. But instantly he was on his feet again, every muscle tense and his heart beating wildly. There, right in front of him, standing out on the ice, was the strangest figure he had ever seen. It was a big man with a fat stomach and a little round head. Everything about him was white, except the hat on his head, the pipe in his mouth, and the large stick that he held in his hands. Why, he is all covered with snow, just like the trees and the bushes, said the little bullpup, stepping down on the ice and walking slowly towards him. When he came a little nearer, He was frightened, for he saw that this was no ordinary man at all, but one of snow and ice. "Why, it is Jack Frost himself!" he cried. "Surely it could be no other." Shouting at the top of his voice, Nipper ran across the ice and sprang straight at the strange white figure. Again and again he jumped on him. Suddenly, down went the snowman all in a heap, breaking into 1,000 little pieces, all but his head, which went rolling across the pond like a large rubber ball. Quick as a flash, the little bullpup was after it, and tearing it to bits with his sharp little claws until there was nothing left but a pile of very wet snow, a hat, a cane, and a pipe. Nipper stared in surprise at the ruin he had brought about. He wiggled his ears and then his tail, and was relieved to find that they were not frozen. He turned and slowly tried one foot and then the other. They seemed to work as well as ever. "That will teach you to behave," cried the little bullpup, running back to where the snowman had fallen. "Take this snow away at once, and don't you dare bring any more." And then, because he was cold and tired, and also because he was a little bit frightened at what he had done, he left the pond and hurried off for home. He stopped for a moment beside the dormouse nest and called to him several times. But he didn't get any answer, for the dormouse had gone to sleep again. "He will be surprised when he wakes up tomorrow and finds the snow all gone," said the little bullpup, chuckling softly to himself as he hurried on. It was easier climbing the hill, for the ice had melted and the snow was soft. When he came inside of his kennel, he saw his mother looking anxiously out of the door. "Yip, yip!" shouted the little bullpup, racing through the gate and into the yard. "Here I am at last!" "And it's about time, too," said his mother crossly. "Where have you been all day?" "Oh, I had to find someone," answered Nipper, throwing himself down and rolling over and over in the dry straw. "And I did." "What did you do?" asked one of his sisters, sniffing and snuffling at his wet coat with her short, stubby nose. "Yes, what did you do?" echoed the other little sister, sniffing and snuffling too. "Who was it you found?" "Were you lost?" asked his mother. "Where have you been all day?" "I will tell you everything in the morning," answered the little bullpup. "You will be very surprised when you hear where I have been and all the wonderful things I have seen and heard. But I am too tired now," he said, burying his head and shoulders under the straw and settling himself to sleep. "Listen!" cried their mother, jumping to her feet. "What's that noise on the roof?" Hurrying to the door, she looked out. "Why, it is raining!" she exclaimed. "And it is much warmer. The snow will soon be gone. Thank goodness!" "It is me you should thank," said the little bullpup, raising his head out of the straw and grinning from ear to ear. "I told you I would fix that Jack Frost fellow."